quarter of an hour, it is time, I'm delighted to say, for one of my favourite bits, our Good Causes segment, where we shine a spotlight on an individual or individuals who've gone above and beyond to make the world a better place. Now, mental health is something that we've all been talking about more openly and more aware of in 2021, partly because of coronavirus, but also because kids haven't been at school, all sorts of stuff. But a stigma, nevertheless, remains around the issue for many people, particularly men who are shy to talk about it. So, 4 men from the West Midlands are aiming to remove that stigma and encourage others to talk about their own mental health. They are named the Black Country Blokes. They have their own podcast, their own radio show, and their own mental health support group. And I'm delighted to be joined by 2 of the blokes right now. That's Kev Dillon and Lee Cadman. So, gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. Tell us, first of all, a little bit about Black Country Blokes and the work that you do.
I've been your Alistair. Thank you ever so much for having us on. Now, we started the Black Country Blokes, me and my partner in crime, Lee Cadman, Aaron June Craig Pinches. Almost forgot his name then. I'm the head coach of a boxing club in Briley Hill called the Lions ABC. And in boxing clubs, like so many other things, we've got so many characters, so many people of all different colours, creeds, financial backgrounds. And the one thing that joins us in life is the one thing we don't like to admit, that we're all broken in some way. Be I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too whatever it is. When you break that down and you start admitting that you're broken, you have flaws, that unites us. It's the thing that we don't want to talk about. I mean, I've been coaching now for the last 20 years, but unfortunately I couldn't coach. I lost my eyesight at 3 years old through viral meningitis. I went to a mainstream school, and all you want to do when you're a child is to fit in, is not to stick out. And all teachers want to do is point out that you're different. So I grew up with lots of hang-ups, lots of different problems, and I kept it under wraps. And I'm a high-functioning, visually impaired man, for just being blind. And it wasn't until I got older that I started opening up about my panic attack, my depression, my flaws. And more I opened up, more people did. And what we did, like when they say, like, I'm wretched being blind, but I'm not a blind man. I'm a man who happens to be visually impaired. Yeah. And so many times we identify with one part of our personality, whereas Kev Dillon, Lee Cadman are so many different things. So we got together.
Kev, let me bring Lee in because it's you don't have any problem at all about describing it and expressing it. That break, but Lee, is that willingness, as I implied in my introduction, simply to talk about it, whether it's blindness, depression, whatever it might be, the act of talking about it, for you, the breakthrough point?
Definitely, that's definitely been the breakthrough point for myself. I have 3 children. My youngest is severely disabled, and I'll give you for an instance. Yesterday morning at 7 o'clock, she had a bad seizure, and we ended up being blue lighted to hospital. But then by 7 o'clock on the evening, I was back at home sitting on my sofa with her in my arms, and she was well and good. And this up and down roller coaster, basically, I used to bottle all that in. I used to keep all that in, and then 6 months to a year down the line, I felt trapped within myself, and I eventually seek counselling. But I found with the counsellor, it wasn't really helping me because there wasn't a shared experience. But when I talked on the podcast or talked on the radio or talked in our support group, there was other people around me speaking to me who had the same experiences, and I could relate to that better. So I think, definitely going to find people out there who have had similar experiences to yourself has really helped, and I know it'll help other people out there, which is why we did the podcast and the radio.
Yeah. Are you going to have to change the brand? And I don't mind whether Kev or Lee answers this point, because you are the Black Country Blokes, but you're also working with women now.
Well, we started off about men's mental health because, as we know, 75% of the suicides every day are men. And we started off giving us men a voice, but then our wives, our sisters, our daughters become a part of it. And we started so the women in our lives could understand what we were going to, because Leo rightly say, the person, you can't always talk to people closest to you, our wives, our husbands, whoever it is. So we're given an outside look. But now we have women on, we have organisations on, because mental health isn't exclusive to men or women or to any colour, creed, sexuality, disability. It can affect anyone at any time. And that's what we're trying to give the stigma a big KO.
But also, Lee, the other counterintuitive bit about it is that boxing is, as it were, the platform, because most folk out there, me included, you know, you think boxing, you think big, tough, self-confident guys who go in there and do it all, the noble art and the rest of it. And it's a reminder in itself that some of those who superficially seem to be the most confident, the most together, are those who are wrestling with real mental issues.
We see this time and time again within sports, not just boxing, but I mean, there's three massive examples I can think off the top of my head in boxing, and that's Tyson Fury, Ricky Hatton, and Frank Bruno, who have really suffered once they've retired or during their fight. So, you know, mental health, as Kev said, it's not exclusive to anyone. It can hit anyone, no matter what you're doing in life and where you are in life. But I think the unique thing about us is that we have box, we do coach now. Kev is the head coach here. I'm a coach, and boxing is seen as a tough sport, but we all have mental problems within it. So yeah, it's great that we can spread the word, and hopefully people out there will realise it doesn't matter how big, tough you look, you can be struggling inside.
Totally. And Kev, I mean, in the case of the loss of sight and blindness, there's a tiny minority of cases where it can be cured because of operations and stuff like that. But in the main, if you're blind, you're blind. With depression, are we talking about coping with or curing?
With the eyes or with depression?
With the depression, the mental health challenges.
I mean, just because you can have mental health problems doesn't mean you can't be mentally strong. And I think it's living with things. I mean, I've been to countless counsellors, hypnotherapists, NLP practitioners, and they show us strategies. And I'm trying to learn every day, and we have a saying on here saying, you've got to find your medicine, whether it's going to a counsellor, talking to an old friend, starting a podcast, going boxing. You find what makes you happy. And my new thing is gratitude. So every day when I find myself going down that rabbit hole of when I see him and I'll say this, and I'll stop myself and go, you're grateful for having what you've got. And I think in life, the strategy, we fixate on the things that we can't change. I can't change my eyes. I can't change certain things. I can't change yesterday. I can change tomorrow. I can change what I put into my body. And it's knowing the difference between those things. We spend so much time upset about things we can't change and forget about the things that we have the ability to give yourself a break.
Sure. Lee, do you ever come across folk who come along to you and they want to take part or listen to the podcast or take part in the sessions, the counselling, where you think, hang on a minute, this man or this woman actually needs something further up the ladder in terms of health and support, whether it's a GP or whether it's a psychologist or psychiatrist or whoever? Do you ever have to refer up?
All the time. We have to refer up. We have another saying that we're not qualified, but we are experienced. So we experience mental health and we're able to talk about our own stories. But ultimately, there's people out there who are professional. They've gone through training to help people get better. And we recommend people quite regularly on our podcast. And they also come on to our podcast or radio show and talk about it. We had Dr. Emily Barney on the other day, who was a fantastic hypnotherapist, and we do, and we also have people who are in our groups where they're not coping very well at all, and again we may have to phone crisis teams to get them through that rough patch.
Final point to both of you. I mean, I'm looking at a couple of guys who are doing some really good work here, but I mentioned podcasting and I mentioned group sessions and what have you. What's next? I mean, this is one of those things. All great charities, whether it's, the Samaritans or whether it's Brook that we were talking to earlier on about working donkeys, they all start as something small, 2 people, 1 person, what have you. The sky then becomes the limit. Where would you like to be in a couple of years' time, guys?
Well, we're now doing public speaking, going on sites, talking to average day Joes and